Hi, my name is Mark Hayward. This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast. I would like to welcome you to this podcast. I am a corporate employee with an entrepreneurial mindset, and I'm here to share some of my thoughts, ideas, and comments. So today I'm going to talk about two books that have had a major impact on my life, my business life mainly. The first one is by Seth Godin, which is The Purple Cow, and then the second one is by Gary Vaynerchuk, and it is called Crushing It. So I'm going to talk about The Purple Cow first by Seth Godin. So Seth Godin has written loads of books. He's well renowned in marketing worlds and being a little bit out there on but very intuitive, very clever man, very pushes the boundaries and is happy to do that in the marketing sphere. But his book on The Purple Cow was an interesting one because it made you think about trying to attain a purple cow. So a purple cow is something that is remarkable. He uses the word remarkable a lot, and is innovative and is an amazing product, service, whatever it is. And we all want, as a businessman, to find something remarkable, to find our purple cow. So he talks about things in the business world which were remarkable. Starbucks, for example, was one that was truly remarkable. And what he tries to say is that every industry is different, every purple cow is different, because they all need to be remarkable and they can't cover the same things. He talks about the only safe place to be is by doing something risky. He gave an example which I really liked, was the elevators. So elevators have been elevators for many years. And then they found a purple cow, which was the smart elevators, where you just pressed a button and it told you what lift to go to. No one knew they needed that. No one knew that it was the quickest way of being able to get to your floors. It took experimentation, but when they won it, virtually every new building with a elevator lift, in the UK we call them, has the smart selection. So sometimes even in the most dullest market, when, let's be honest, elevators, lifts, the sort of market is rather dull in reality. So he talks about I really liked his idea of sneezers, who are the people that make things viral by using word of mouth and social media, and it's a really interesting way that the sneezers are the people that pass on the viruses. So liked that a lot. I thought that was really clever. Most of the population aren't sneezers. Most of the people are so saturated with advertising. He talks a lot about advertising and how that has reduced it considerably. So things like the Super Bowl halftime advert, people are still spending millions and millions of pounds on that, when actually you could get a lot more bang for your buck, as the Americans call it, bang for your buck, by doing something on Google or doing something on Facebook or Instagram, etc. So the other thing he talks about, which is very clever marketing, is that ads at the moment, especially on TV, are not focused enough. They're just loud. They're clever. They might be funny. They might be heartfelt. But essentially, you're trying to market to a too wider audience. The audience, the population, have split into so many different demographics, different types of people, whether it's age, race, whether it's demographic, whether it's social, and then within that you then break down again. So now marketing is for niches, not for the masses anymore, which I thought was really interesting. So that he says, just ignore mass media. It's not where the money is. It's not where you're going to make long lasting and get purple cows. So I thought that was really interesting. He talks very much like him. Different is best. the cool factor is also an important thing, but basically what he's trying to say is that if you look to market to a whole population, a whole country, you're going to fail because they're already existing. There's Cokes, there's Pepsis, there's Starbucks, there's Louis Vuitton, there is all these different types of companies that are which market for the masses. And when they did market for the masses, that was the advertising when we were on TV and radio, and you could do that very quickly and get really big really quickly. Starbucks is a prime example. They just expanded and expanded and expanded as quickly as they could. The great thing about Starbucks is the additional social welfare that they do for their business. But the purple cow is now the modern phenomenon, and that is what we need to find: remarkable products, remarkable people selling products, and if you don't do that, then you're not going to be successful in this modern world, digital world. He talks about Starbucks as actually being very remarkable and now not so much remarkable. But equally, once you've got a purple cow, you need to milk it. So another graphic, clear example that he gives. I think that's one of the things that you need to just think about, is that once you get the purple cow, you need to keep on milking it. But equally, you might need to then rebrand or re-innovate, because the moment that you stop innovating and just resting on your laurels, that's when the business is going to go downhill and not exist in 10 years' time. So you've got to think about it in that sort of way. So I really like this book. I think it's a really interesting view of how we actually market, how we should be marketing now. And the whole thing of being able to create something remarkable pushes my thought process outside of the boundaries which my corporate environment encourages. Corporate environments are very constrained and very conservative, and there's little risk or little sort of innovation in its truest sense. Don't get me wrong, that in my company there is some really clever, really innovative work that's being done. I just think startups is probably where you're going to innovate faster, maybe not better. But I think you just need to think. It gave me a thought process outside, which is the whole reason why I've got an entrepreneurial mindset, is because I think about these things outside the box. I don't just constrain myself by management speak and management books and how to take a business from 100 million to a trillion. That's important, but equally being able to innovate, being able to create remarkable products is also exciting and interesting and important, even for a corporate, because sometimes the corporate needs to disrupt itself to be truly remarkable. Even though this is probably aimed more at the sort of smaller size startups, I think it was an incredibly important book that everyone should read about. So just to recap, the last few things that he talks about, he says, don't be boring, safe is risky, design rules now, so things like the iPhone, for example, and very good is very bad. You've got to be remarkable. So I really enjoyed it. I would advise it for anyone that wants to think a little bit differently. Talks about sneezers and people that are passionate about their products, but equally the customers that are passionate about the products as well. IKEA is remarkable. It's cheap, but it doesn't feel cheap. So all these different examples that he's given are where companies have come and hit the market and been remarkable, and either in some cases they've crashed and burned eventually, but a lot of it is important, because to have that remarkable, he almost says you need a team to make a remarkable purple cow, and then a different type of team to be milking it. So I think that's an interesting thing just to finish on with that. Advise it, go out there, read it as quickly as you can, absorb it, think about it. How can your business be different by doing that? The second book that I want to talk about is Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk. This guy is, if you follow anything business sites, you must have seen him on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on YouTube. The guy's everywhere. He's really innovative, really top bloke. Would really like to have a glass of wine with him. He originated from the wine industry with his father's business, but entrepreneurial, built big businesses, his digital marketing company. And what I liked about this was he broke down the different type and the importance of each of the different mediums. So Facebook, he talks a lot about Facebook and the quality is important there. He talks about your avatar. He talks about building credibility, building passion. Don't just be an expert. Be passionate about your business. Be authentic to yourself. Have speed, but have patience. Think about the next big things. Look at websites about those next big things and learn from other people's mistakes and your own mistakes. So really important to read, to get his viewpoint on that. It made me think about this podcast, who I think my avatar is, who the perfect person is that listens to these podcasts. Now, I might get it completely wrong, but I've got a general feeling now of who those people are. So he talks about Musical.ly, which is a really interesting platform, a young platform where basically people lip sync songs, and it's just fun. It's lots of teenagers doing it. He puts it in as it's just an early on the platform, and is going to get bigger, but we don't know if it's going to be massive. He talks about Snapchat. He actually says that this deserves a bit more attention. It's a little bit underestimated. It's not where your mum and dad are looking. It's got devoted fans. It uses advertising, and it says inspirational videos for Snapchat. Not my favourite medium, I must admit. I'd find it very. I'm not massively professional on this. I just my laptop and a microphone. I don't massively edit, but I would say Snapchat feels for me a little bit too rough around the edges, let's say. The other one he talks about is Twitter. So a pure social network. You can get into conversations, you can link with other people, you get lots of passionate people about Twitter. He says you just need to invest a lot of time into Twitter. It's a slow burner, but you need to spend hours a day to be able to see it pay off. And he likes the retweet feature. It's kind of like word of mouth, and you can engage with anyone in theory. So I'd say, yeah, Twitter is one that I use a lot. I do a lot of these podcasts there. I do a lot of videos, and I do a lot of retweeting and some inspirational quotes. I find it very, very helpful. I've got a loyal following now. I'm trying to build up by testing what people like and what people don't like. So that's really important to me and my strategy. He talks about YouTube. He talks about YouTube being basically television for 20 to 49-year-olds. You can make stars out of this content, video blogging, documenting your day. There's a lot behind YouTube now. You've got to get a lot of details in the notes. You've got to get accurate, and it's you got to do it for your audience. It is a bit like TV, and it has replaced. I know people, friends and family, who now log on to YouTube to watch some videos in the evening rather than actually logging on to Sky or Amazon Prime or Netflix. So I find that interesting. You do need a certain element of editorial skills to be able to make the most out of YouTube. I've used it as a portal to store my short 2-minute, 3-minute video blogs. I don't think that's necessarily the right medium for it. It's more for longer content. So I think you need to just be a little bit strategic if you're going to do longer content and get that editing right, because it's so important. You can't just go on there and just talk. You can, but it looks better when it's looking a little bit more professional. Facebook, so there's nearly 2 billion users. You need a strategy. You need to work out what you want to release, whether it's pictures, music, videos, sharing culture. It's still relatively cheap on what you can offer your bang for your buck. It's going to be massive. There's no doubt that Facebook is continuing to get bigger and bigger. They've had a few skirmishes with the governments and things, but I do think this is powerful stuff. I don't use it that much. I'm not convinced at my stage whether the stuff that I would release would actually be relevant for Facebook, although I do see the massive scale that this has. So I would say definitely look into that. Podcasts, basically, it's a really useful medium, and you can find what you like, and it's audio, so you can go in the gym, you can travel, you can walk the dog, you can listen to podcasts. So definitely a major thing for people, and should be more important, and will get more important, I'm pretty sure, over time. And then he briefly talks about Alexa and how important. He's very obsessed by voice and Alexa and Google Home, and he sees this as the future. For me, I'm not. So we kind of use a little bit of work in a sort of demo, and it is great, but I'm not convinced there is a business service that can be done. Are you really going to sit in an open plan office talking to Alexa? Probably not, I don't think. And at home, I think there's got to be a killer app. There's got to be an app that changes the game for Alexa and for Google Home. I don't think we've got that yet. It's very good for. I've got one. It's very good for music, and you hands free. If you're cooking or you're kids, you can put some music on. Really good for that. And the speakers aren't actually that bad if you do pay a little bit more than the cheapest Alexa. Speakers aren't bad at all, and especially now you've got like Sonos who are doing their speakers, which are Alexa accessed as well. So I'd say that's incredibly important. So it's a really interesting mix of him sort of saying, do you know what you need to do? You need to love what you do. I think that's the core message from both of his books, is crushing it, or crush it and crushing it. And they both talk about doing things that you love and putting things, leave things on the table if you want to do things with good money. So he always talks about that. Wouldn't it be better to be, if you love baseball or basketball or cricket or rugby, to write and be paid, let's just make it up, £100,000 to write a blog for ESPN, Cricinfo, on the internet, versus being a lawyer for £150,000 and not enjoying yourself. So it's a really interesting concept of what is actually important, and he uses digital medium for advertising, for marketing, to get to market quickly, so that he's able to achieve those things that he wants, and he thinks is most done in the digital arena. Right, that's where I'm going to stop. There are my two favourite books that I've read recently, and I would definitely promote everyone else to read them as well. So check me out on Twitter, Mark Hayward 169. Please subscribe to my podcast. I would love you to subscribe or download. Please give me a iTunes review. Love to give me an out of 5 and your thoughts and comments about what I've done and how the good bits and the bad bits. I'm really happy for feedback, even if it's not good. These are things that can make me better. But equally, if you love it, then tell me that you love it. So please put a review there. It means a lot in iTunes. status. So if you could do that, I would appreciate it. And one last thing, if you've enjoyed what you've heard today or previously, then tell someone about it. Tell your best mate. Tell your brother, your sister. Tell someone that you've enjoyed it and you advise them to listen to my podcasts. Right, check it out. Really appreciate your time and have a good one. Thanks a lot.